Good evening, everybody. This is your host, Huge Pop from the Huge Pop Wrestling Podcast, and we got a great guest tonight. He is the promoter of the Mid-States Wrestling. He is the hardest working man in the business. He hosts slap fight championships. He's been around the business for 27 plus years. Welcome to the show, to the HPWP, the Space Cowboy, Jason Jones. My friend, how you doing today?
Scott, thanks for having me on, buddy. I'm excited. Let's do it, baby.
Let's do it. So I'm going to start with every time I start a podcast, I have to dive into what was it like growing up as a kid, watching wrestling for you.
To me, that was a special thing. That was my dad owned his own business, so he worked 6 days a week. But the only time that he really wasn't a football guy, baseball guy, anything like that, but he did love his WTBS 5:05 Central Time Saturday afternoon. And so when I was a kid, I wanted to spend time with my dad all week, and he would come home. But for that 2-hour window, he watched wrestling. And finally, one day I was just, my dad said he was going to go outside, and we were going to go do this and this and this. And my mom was like, hey, as soon as wrestling's over, he'll go outside with you. She goes, why don't you go up there and jump up in his lap and watch this with him? I was just a young kid. And I realized that was a good father-son bonding time for us. And then he finally just said one day, like, hey, would you want to go to a match if it comes around here? And he took me, I think one of my first matches I got to go to, and I was really blessed. World Class came to Fort Smith, Arkansas, and we got a chance to see Brody and Abdul in a brass knuckles match and the Von Erichs. And it was a loaded card. So after that, I used to get so tickled at my dad watching the fans react to certain things. So anytime that wrestling came back through Springfield, Missouri, we go to Shrine Moss, he would check me out of school when NWA would come to Little Rock or Memphis or WWF. He'd take me out of school and he would take off work and we would go down there. It was like our father-son bonding time. So that's probably had the biggest influence on me, being the kid and getting to go see those things and spend that quality time with my father. So I was hooked, man.
Man, so you mentioned Bruiser Brody, the Von Erichs, and so on and so forth. Great legends of the business, of course.
Absolutely.
Is there one match that could stick out in your mind that, yep, that was the match that got me hooked on this business?
Man, I was always fascinated and captivated by Dusty Rhodes. Dusty had a way of pulling you in, like when you're watching his match, and he made you care so much about what was going on. And he was charismatic when he needed to be charismatic, but when he was upset, you felt his frustration. And I'd say some of the first matches that I remember were those WTBS, NWA Saturday nights with Rhodes and his feud with Flair, and then breaking Dusty's arm and things like that. Those were probably the matches. I can't narrow it down to probably just one. One of the biggest memories, though, is like being a kid, and I remember having a sleepover with my cousins at my grandparents' house. And remember when Saturday night's main event would come on?
Yes, sir.
When you're a kid, you don't care anything about Saturday Night Live. Right. But, and sometimes you wouldn't even find out till you flipped on and it was like, oh, my gosh, wrestling's on and on. But one of the most, and my cousin still asks me about it. He's like, do you remember that time we were watching that steel cage? And it was the night that Orndorff fought Hogan in the cage, and their feet, they synced it up to come down at the same time. That's one of my most clearest memories from being a kid. I can still remember what I was wearing with my cousins and just like the emotion that we were caught up in, because we were probably, 6 years old or something like that. And getting to see that play out on TV, it was mind-blowing, man.
That's funny you say Saturday Night's Main Event, because one of my biggest memories is with my brother. He's 10 years younger than me, and Dad said to me, don't let your brother come in your room on a Saturday night. He needs to be in bed.
Right.
Of course, my brother was like, Scott, what are you watching? What are you watching? I said,
what are you doing in there?
All right, I'm watching Saturday Night's Main Event. Man, can I come in? I said, Dad said no. Well, of course, it was with Sid Vicious and Hulk Hogan.
Oh, yeah, man.
And, Sid Vicious was the power bomb. What's that smell? I smell the power bomb. So my brother was in there. I picked him up. I was Sid Vicious. He was Hulk Hogan. I picked him up and I threw him down on the ground onto the bed. His feet kicked up, kicked down the lampshade, broke the lampshade off the ceiling. And my dad comes up And there, I won't finish the story because that's it right there. So, but you did mention Dusty Rhodes.
Yeah.
And he showed frustration. He showed emotions.
Yes, sir.
I was listening to Busted Open today, and we were talking. They were talking. Bubba Ray was talking about when is Cody Rhodes going to show the same emotions, and that's so I don't know. My quick question, not related to the pocket. Quick question: you think Cody Rhodes will finish the story?
You know, I'm not. I know this sounds really bad, and with being a promoter and being a wrestler, I should keep up with the current day stuff better than I do. I have a group of buddies that we get together every year and watch the Royal Rumble. It's because we've done it since high school. And I have a couple of buddies that come over and watch WrestleMania. We'll watch like the big 2 a year, and then we might throw a SummerSlam in there. Yeah. Going into Royal Rumble, I was like, well, this is cool. They've got that momentum of he's going to beat Roman Reigns, and then they threw The Rock in the mix, and then I was like, man, I don't think they know what they're doing, and I think they're literally, they painted themselves into a corner, and I still couldn't tell you what the damn match is going to be. And I heard it was going to be a tag team match, and then like to me that's not a WrestleMania main event, a tag match, because who cares? I don't know, man. I like Cody a lot as a person and as an entertainer, and I can see him being the guy, but not a long period of time. I can see him being a transitional champion. As much as I hate to use that word, I can see him taking it off the guy that's been. How long has he had that belt now? How long has Roman had that belt? A long time, right?
1,300 days or something like that.
Jesus, man, that's it's like 4 years or something, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So I see you maybe taking it off of him, giving a little bit of credibility to Cody, letting him carry that till, when's your next big day? Maybe SummerSlam, and having him drop that to your next guy and get it back into that middleweight contention, and then send Roman off for a feud this way with somebody else.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I get burned out on some guys, like, because I only watch it a handful of times, or I watch that quick version that they do on Hulu, where they'll like do the 90-minute version.
Yeah. Yep.
And kind of just like some of those guys, I'm like, man, and nothing against the guy personally, but like Drew McIntyre, they just love to polish that guy up. And if I see one more Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens match, I'm going to beat my head against the wall. And I like both of those guys.
Right.
But I've seen that match so many dadgum times for so many years. And I'm not even like an avid watcher, but just on pay-per-views and times that I have watched, I felt like I've seen that match 20 or 30 times.
Absolutely. 100%. And I can say this to you as a promoter of an indie show. I didn't realize that was going on like that as much as it is in the bigs. As I watched, I went to a promotion here in Panama City, XIW, Extreme Impact Wrestling, and it was my first indie show. And after my first indie show, I fell in love with indies. I like WWE and AEW, sure. But indie shows is where it's at, because
I agree,
because you guys put your hearts on the line and you guys tell a story, and it's real, and it looks as real could be. Sure. And you walk away going, holy crap, you want to go to the next show.
I agree with you on that. And I wasn't trying to interrupt you, but like, some people will never get it on the level that you got it at. And there's some horrible independent wrestling out there. I've wrestled for some of those places, and it's terrible. But when you go to a good professional wrestling show, but for some people, it will never be, because they see you as minor league and you're not on that stage of WWE. So some people, it will never register, and it will never be enough for some people. It's like I've watched some AEW, and I have a lot of buddies that work, that are getting a paycheck from AEW right now. There's some good talent on there. There's some good matches. There's some matches that aren't for me. But for those people that just shoot AEW down because it's not WWE, I see all that stuff happening, online, and people going back and forth with this and that. And I'm like, can't you just enjoy wrestling? But some of those people, if they go to an independent show, they're going to, they're gonna poo-poo it either way because it's not on the grand scale. And I'm like, hey,
Right.
you know those guys that you're watching every Monday night, they started off right there.
Right. Now, I hope the fans that watch this hear what you said, because you're the second guy that has said it in the last week and a half. I had Afa's son-in-law, Julio Rivera, on here, The Cure, and he said the same thing. Let's
Right.
just watch it and be
Just
a
watch it
fan.
and have a good time. Be entertained, man.
Not get on that Twitter, not get on that TikTok and just bash each other because so yeah. But back to you.
Yeah.
When did you decide you wanted to be a pro wrestler, and what training school did you go to? How'd that whole thing wind up being?
Well, there ended up being like kind of in my, just like every teenage boy, you go through that phase where you watch wrestling and then you find out what girls are, and then nothing else matters for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd say I started getting back into it again when I was probably about, probably 15, 16. And I happened to know a guy that had went and got trained by Exotic Adrian Street. And he lived around here, and he was like, hey, man, let me show you. And I was still in high school, but he came and promoted a show, and it was horrible, but that was my foot in the door. He let me help run the music and do a little bit of this, do a little bit of that. Got in there, took some bumps, learned how to tie up. And then every time that he would come around, even when he started working for another promoter, that I got my foot in the door with ring announcing when I was still basically in high school, was a chance to get in the ring. And then him introducing me to people. And there was like, I didn't have just one guy that broke me in. I learned this from this person, this from this person. And that's the way it was, because here in Arkansas, there weren't a lot of wrestling schools. So you had to find a promotion that was running independence, and there wasn't a lot running in Arkansas. There was some in northern Missouri. You had Harley that started up in the late 90s. But you would try to get a vet to get in the ring with you and knock you around for a little bit before the show, and then hopes maybe you get somebody else in there to stretch you out, after a show for 5 minutes. So I picked up this and this here and here and here, and then I started kind of putting it together. And then I would ask them, what can I watch? And that was back before you had a network. Mm-hmm. You had to go online and buy a videotape of footage or look back on the stuff you taped, and what should I study? What should I watch? And I would watch the matches when I was there to help, or when I was ring announcing, ringing the bell, whatever. I learned how to play music back when the music was on a cassette tape, and the guy would get the arena and say, here's my song, it's queued up. And then after it was over, rewinding that back, holding the microphone to it, because some of the places didn't have an actual PA system.
Right. Yeah.
And I did all this when I was still in high school. So there for a while, there was never just like one guy that ended up training me. I would say I probably learned the most. From Sonny Myers, because I was already in the business, but the way his mind worked he had been a promoter, he had been an NWA heavyweight chair, he had been all those things, and he was so knowledgeable, and he was like the last of like the dying breed of like the carnival wrestlers that started out, and you had to actually know what you were doing. He started out in the carnival calling guys out, and to pick his brain and to sit with him and learn about secular, just the wrestling being a secular thing, and the bells and curves to it, and politics involved in it, not just behind the locker room, but, politics of who's in office, when there's a budget, because Sonny actually ran a carnival too. So he had a lot of carny tricks, but I learned probably more from that guy that a lot of guys didn't care to learn. They wanted to learn the holds, the locks, all that stuff. And that's cool. I got a chance to learn all that. But getting to sit down with that guy and pick his brain about running a promotion, promoting in this, this mid-states area, this Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas area, because that's different than a lot of places you go to. What may fly in the Northeast, and everybody's like, oh my God, that was freaking awesome. You come down here and it could be crickets, Southern wrestling is very different. You got to learn how to work down here, because they'll spot you. If you're a phony, they'll boo you out of the building. And what may be a standing ovation in New Jersey, you come down here and it may be the biggest stinker on the card. So you actually had to learn how to work and work on the cuff. So if they weren't buying something, buying it while you were in there, you could pivot. And so those days of a lot of people actually learning to wrestling are replaced with guys with really good memories putting spots together. But you don't get that emotional. We talked about with like Dusty Rhodes. If you don't learn how to wrestle from your heart and you're just out there doing moves, how can you ever give them what they fully and truly want? You know, it's like going grocery shopping a month in advance. I don't know what I'm going to be hungry for 2 Thursdays.
Right.
But if you go week by week, you can kind of break that down.
Right.
So I've got some weird analogies I attribute that in, but a lot of that goes to when I do train people. I kind of break it down and put it in common sense terms that they can relate to. If I'm working with a guy that used to play football, I'm going to give a lot of football references and, talking about being cool in the pocket and calling audibles and things like that. So, but I think that just being a teenager and being able to break in and then just learning from every chance that I could. And I didn't really have that one person. It was just, I learned this here, I learned this here, I learned this here. And then when I started putting it all together and actually working at it, it would be a matter of having a match, videotaping that match on an old camcorder, going back and watching that match like 20, 30 times, taking notes, then showing up to, there's a lot of times that I would show up. This is now, guys, kids watching, this is before phones and everything could be done there. I remember having a camcorder and bringing the tape to like Tracy Smothers and being like, could you watch my match from a month ago? And just actually, as you know, getting him in a good mood and saying, could you critique this for me? Could you give me something to work on? But actually getting a piece of paper out and writing down what they told me to work on, as opposed to some people that are just all about the minute you tell them what they need to work on, they go into excuse mode. Right. And so I would literally study those videotapes of my stuff. I'm like, man, I did that, but I didn't register and I didn't sell to the crowd. I need to work on this. Slow down, slow down, slow down, slow down. And I would write all this stuff down. And I would have guys, not just that were seniors like say Tracy Smothers, but just for instance, guys that were already working on the indies that had a few more years experience with me. Like, what's your call on this? What do you think about that? And getting feedback from guys that were, in the same locker room with me. I think you take it all with a grain of salt, you put it together and see what comes out, in the end. So,
yeah. And you mentioned something about paying attention, slowing down, writing things down, talking to those guys in the back, getting advice. Is this something that's missing today in the modern indie wrestling compared to what was back then?
My students hear me say this all the time because I run a training school, have for many years. My students hear me say, you will never see a more individualized team sport in your life. Now, I say that because there are guys in that locker room of a lot of places that I go wrestle for that are not team players, and they are all about them. They are all about themselves and doing whatever move that they saw that week that they want to try to work into their move set or repertoire. And they're too interested in doing that to give a flying flip about the guy that has spent half his paycheck trying to bring the kids out to have a good time. Or they're too invested in, well, this will look cool for my highlight reel I can post on my social media. Who cares? What did you give that crowd? What did you give that promoter that didn't want you to go out there and do that? That promoter wanted you to do, A, B, C, and you're doing X, Y, Z. And I try to look at things from a promoter and a booking standpoint. When I train guys, they're not just, they know their spot on the card. If they're opening match, they're not going to go out there and do a dozen false finishes. They're not going to go outside because the main event may be a Texas death match or a street fight. Why should you take away from the event that's selling everything? My job is to entertain them and to go out and do the match in about the time frame that the promoter needs it to go. And a lot of guys, they just don't care. They're just going to go out there, and if you tell them that, hey guys, we got a big card tonight, you've only got 7 minutes for your match, If they go out there and go 10, they go, I don't care. They were there for themselves. They weren't there to help sell tickets. They weren't there to help that promoter, to help their opponent. They're not looking ahead at the next show. What a lot of people don't understand is a booker and promoter, their rent money's on the line on that show. The money that they use to feed their kids, clothe their kids, pay their bills, it's on that show. And whereas that guy may not see anything about going 5 minutes over in his match, you've screwed everybody else over on the card because you're not trying to play within that wheelhouse. If there's 7 matches on the card and everybody decides to go 5 minutes over, it's 35 minutes. If that show was scheduled to end at 9:30, a lot of families maybe can't stick around to see the end of it or the main event that sold them to be there. Maybe the storytelling is in the main event to try to draw them back, but they don't know that because they had to leave because their kids need to go to bed.
Right.
Guys don't think about stuff like that, and promoters and bookers do, or they should be. And maybe that's part of the problem now. I don't know.
All right. Well, Herb Simmons is in the house. Thank you, Herb, for the support. Herb Simmons,
Herb.
The hardest working man in the business, the Space Cowboy.
No, that's Herb Simmons. Let me tell you, I'll put him over right now. Man, with this Fan Fest thing that Herb has got going on, I was there last year with Jimmy Hart, and I was blessed enough to be in that Bruiser Brody Battle Royal, and I'm in it again this year. And to see the amount of – you're not just talking about booking a show. You're not just talking about booking a Fan Fest and a couple of names. You're talking about booking 40 names, hotel, airfare. Herb, my hat's off to you. I can't wait to see what you put together this year for the Fan Fest in St. Louis because I'm excited, baby. I'll just put Herb over real quick while we're on.
That's all right. No, I will tell you what, man. I have got to give mad props to Herb Simmons myself because it's just been able to talk to him. I had him on our podcast. Great, man. I think we went an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah.
The stories, man. And the things that I see him do, the Cauliflower Alley Club, the Fan Fest, the Bruiser Brody Battle Royal.
Yeah.
Everything. I mean,
Herb's a good guy. And like Herb came down to my last show. I go up and work for him and vice versa. He brings talent down here. And, you know, he's come to my shows and be like, hey, that guy could work good with this. And we do our best. I think we're two of the companies that do our best in this area as far as actually trying to work together, not just on coordinating dates, but using talent. We did a bunch of our filmings at a fundraiser we did in February. Herb sent some of his guys down and we taped them, sent him the footage so he could use them for his TV show up there. But I think as far as, you know, Cauliflower Alley is one good thing that Herb and I actually get a chance to actually sit down and visit because the times that we do get to visit, he's got a show going on and I'm on it, or I've got a show going on. And, you know, Herb came down and called some commentary, but on a day of a show, we don't have a lot of sit down and visit time. It's
absolutely
a matter of get this done to get the show going. So being able to go out there and unwind and just, you know, sit down and grab a bite to eat with my buddy Herb. And Herb also understands having a good team is part of it. And he's got a great team up at SICW, man, from just, I mean, a good team. I mean, I went up there and saw not just guys in the locker room, but from the people helping take tickets at the door to relying on your family to do this or that. You got to put people in a position that you can trust. And Herb's got a great thing going with SICW. I love to go up there. I wish it was a little bit closer and I could make those trips almost every time, but I love it. Love working for him.
And he just said it. He's right. That's the territories. That's what it's supposed to be. And I wish the territories were back, you know, more than they are.
Well, if anybody's trying their best to reset it and to restart it, it's SICW with Mid-States Wrestling. We've done our best to try to make it where guys can actually go and work different places, and let's work on doing this together. Let's do this together. Let's intermingle those things. Let me use my show to help promote your show. Let's use your guy to help put up my champion, you know, things like that. And I'm glad that I have somebody I can trust like Herb, that we kind of have each other's back as far as talent and things that we can just play off each other, you know. So
and as a podcast guy, I'm excited to have SICW and Mid-States Wrestling, the Space Cowboy and Herb, I'm glad I'm working with you guys. It's going to be a fun year, so I'm looking forward to that.
It's going to be a big year. It's going to be a big year for Mid States, for SICW, and for Pop Wrestling Podcast. So it's an all around win. You know, I tell people that I train all the time. It's like, look, when you look good, I look good, and the company looks good. So it's definitely is a handshake and a help out kind of business. And I think the more of a team player that you are, the further you will go in this business, and the more that you will reap in rewards. So, yeah.
And I'll take that down as notes, man. Thank you. I appreciate that.
There you go.
So, when was your first ever in-ring match, and what sticks most in your mind regarding that match?
Oh my gosh, that'd be 97. Pittsburgh, Kansas, I think. Pittsburgh or Fort Scott. I think it's Pittsburgh. Man, there for a while, I had a notebook, like my first 3 years of matches that I had. And I think the ex-wife destroyed that. Or I never saw it anymore after the divorce. But what sticks out in my mind was it was a gimmick match, because I had started off being a ring announcer, and that was my way into the match that the promoter had set up. And it wasn't, I wanted to give my opponent more than just a gimmicky type win. But I learned at an early age, it's what he wanted. He's the one that's paying me to be there. He's the one that's investing the time on the card to get me over, which would in turn hopefully set something up for when we came back and people would come to see that story play out. So that's my biggest regret, is not having more time to do something and not giving my opponent more. But like I said, I was there for that promoter and to watch it, just do what he said. And that's my biggest advice, is there's a lot of guys that are great wrestlers, but they're not on the team fully as far as what the promoter wants you to do. And I think to be a good team player, you got to give them what they want at that particular time. So,
absolutely. So, Terry Thompson, thank you for jumping on. I've been in this business for 40 years at MSW and SICW are hands down the best. Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Terry's great, man. Terry's awesome. Terry helps out as our general manager, and man, that dude knows his wrestling. I enjoy getting to sit around and talk to Terry, but that's the same thing. We're always so busy on the day of a show, we don't get a chance to. And Terry would come and help us out with the students every now and then, and it's so good because you can hear things that you've told them. And when they have someone that's been in the business as long as Terry has, when he tells them the exact same thing without being prompted to, it's like I just sit back and I go, that's what I told you. So it's kind of being vindicated in a certain way. So I enjoy that.
Absolutely. So in the business, in your time in the ring and out of the ring, is there anybody you enjoy working with the most? And has there been anybody that you have, man, I'm never going to work with this guy again?
No, there's never really been anybody with like, I'm not going to do anything with this guy again. I think that, especially when you deal with guys that are younger, they're in their 20s, everybody matures a little bit as they get older, and sometimes the egos aren't there. I've been blessed to do so much with so many guys that I grew up watching. I travel a lot with Jimmy Hart, and he's just a well of knowledge, not just managing, not just promoting, but actual wrestling. I learned a lot from Hacksaw Butch Reed. Butch was one of our former heavyweight champions, and getting to wrestle against Butch, getting to tag with Butch, he was one of those things that we didn't call a lot of stuff in the back, but he would kind of lead you through it. And then once he saw what you were doing, he'd be like, all right. And then it was like a give and take. The more that he could see you could do and saw your ability, he'd give you a little bit more. In the next match, he'd give you a little bit more. Then he'd give you a little bit more. And for a 50-some-odd-year-old guy at the time, and almost 60, into his early 60s, for him to trust you by doing that, like, who am I? What have I ever done? I never wrestled at WrestleMania. I never did this. I never did that. But for him to see, man, he always put me over so much as far as my booking. Because there was times when he'd be booked on a show and so didn't show up, and I would start scrambling. I'd start scrambling in my head, and he was like, "You got it, Jay. Just roll it around. You got it, boy. You got it. You got it. You come up with something." About 2 minutes later, I'd have something. He's like, "There it was. There it was." So getting that, him always having confidence in me to try to figure it out and try to protect him in the ring and protect his name and not just put him in there. So many guys are so protective of their legacy, and they have to do that because of a reason. They're not just going to go somewhere and be squashed like a bug or for someone just to, take a crap on it, so to speak. Right. So once they see that you're on the same side, that you guys are in it to win it, I think there's a level of trust and there's a level of respect that's drawn there. And if it's done right, you can get by with more and more and more. So I would say probably Butch Reed. I mean, great dude, and many, many hours, many, many thousands of miles in a car with him. So I'd probably say Butch Reed, being as an opponent and being as like a tag team partner and a mentor all the way along. So good dude.
So now you mentioned Butch Reed and you mentioned Jimmy Hart.
Right.
Would they be your closest friends in the business?
Jimmy is, Butch, we lost, unfortunately, but I learned so much from beautiful Bobby Eaton, and I never had a match against him. I always managed Bobby, or it was just Bobby traveling with me to go do appearances and things. Bobby Eaton was one of the kindest men in the world. His family, Debbie, his sister, and his kids, I just love them to death. And I learned from Bobby because he would teach you without even realizing he was teaching it. I don't even think he meant to. He was just a good dude. You could run into Bobby at say a coffee shop. You went in there to get something to eat for breakfast, and he would be that guy that would be sitting at the table beside you and end up having a conversation with. Okay. He's just that way. And it wasn't all about wrestling. We didn't even talk about wrestling half the time. We talked about Andy Griffith. We talked about my stepdad when he was younger. He was on a couple episodes of Gunsmoke. And to Bobby, that was just like the coolest thing in the world. And I'm like, you don't understand, man. When I was a kid, the first bad guys I cheered were the Midnight Express. But he was so humble, and he's just, that's wrestling's biggest loss is been Bobby Eaton, because beautiful Bobby Eaton was a good friend of mine, and we could go months without seeing each other and we'd pick right back up off the minute we saw each other with a big hug. So I learned a lot from Bobby, just about being a good person, I think.
So any cool, funny car driving stories?
I've got a lot with Bobby. I got some I can share and some I can't, but one of the funniest stories that I never knew, you could take, like, those Cokes that you can buy, the Coca-Cola that don't twist off, but they have to pop off,
Yes. Yep.
Well, most anything that had unless it was some kind of beer, you could twist them off. I didn't think anything of it. And we stopped at a gas station one time in Springdale, Arkansas, on our way to Oklahoma. And I bought one of those glass bottled Cokes. Mm-hmm. And I got out to the car and I thought I had a little, sure enough, it wasn't a twist. I was like, man, I guess I can go back in the gas station and shove that. No. Hey, Spice, come here. Let me see that. And then, if anybody knows Bobby, wait till, hey, watch this. He reaches in the front, he unclips the little seatbelt deal and takes the seatbelt, the metal part, turns it sideways and goes and opens that thing with the little square that's in the seatbelt.
Yeah. Okay.
What? My mind was blown. Absolutely. At that point. That's just the little funny things like that. Just Bobby you could be talking about something this way, and all of a sudden he just turned to be like, hey man, what's your favorite Johnny Cash song? Like, if you put me on the spot, man, but Bobby was just a cool dude to have around. But so many road trip stories and so many funny stories with Bobby. Some of them I can't share. So
that's okay, man. That's okay. So fan interactions, man. Let's talk about how important fans are to mid-states wrestling, how important fans are to a wrestler, and those kind of interactions. How's that work with you guys?
To me, without the fans, we are absolutely nothing. and I hear Jimmy Hart say that all the time. Without the fans there, you're just wrestling some dude in your underwear in front of nobody, right? So to me, I've been in this business, this secular business, the ups and downs, and there was times you would go to a little armory in the middle of Podunk, Kansas, and there'd be 500 people there. Well, the next time you came through with a different promoter a year later, there'd be 15 people in the crowd. So I've watched the ups and I've watched the valleys and the mountaintops, and I'd much rather wrestle in front of 300 people than 30 people. Guys don't understand that. So some guys do and some guys don't, but you'll always see me at my merchandise table, my merch table, signing autographs. And there's a lot of times that they're not going to buy my photo or buy my t-shirt, but if they have an event poster, I want to be sure that I sign that for them, because just taking 5 seconds out of your day and telling the dad and mom that you appreciate you bringing the kids out and supporting this company, whether I'm there next month for that company or not. Thank you for doing that, and thank you for supporting them so we can continue to bring this back here. That person spent, probably $15-$20 a ticket, bring his family of 4 out, $60. He may have paid for parking depending on where you're at. He's going to go to the concession stand and drop $30 or $40. Then he's going to buy them all a souvenir. And that dude has probably dropped a couple $100 on a regular Saturday night. And I think that more people need to take the time to tell those mom and dads, to tell those people that come out, thank you for coming and supporting, XYZ Wrestling. I appreciate it. Take that little extra minute, whether you're a heel, whether you're a babyface, whatever, sign that kid's autographs, take a selfie with them, make them feel that they can forget their problems for 2.5, 3 hours and just be entertained. Make them feel special for just a minute. You don't know what that person's going through. Maybe it's something, and a kid comes to the show and he gets bullied 5 days a week at school, and then he gets bullied online. But on Saturday night, he's excited because he's going to get to go to wrestling with his family. Make that kid feel like the coolest kid in the world on that Saturday night, that he's having a great time. Make that dad feel welcome and make him feel special for bringing his family out. Hey, buddy, thanks for bringing the kids out. That really means a lot. A little wink and a smile. Hey, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. And because if they're not happy, they're not going to come back and see you the next time. If they don't get welcomed, and I think we tried to run mid-states with, for coming up on 20, 23, 24 years now. We ran mid-states with just good customer service is all it boils down to. Be nice to the people, kill them with kindness, treat people with respect and the way you would try. Don't try to make a quick buck on them and then come back, another time and just try to gouge them like a carnival coming to town or something. And so many promoters back when I broke in, that's the way they were. It's like They ran a carny, or a carnival. They come in, roll into town, rape, pillage, and plunder everything, try to get as much money as they could, then go away, then come back again and try to do it again. Well, that's not good business if you look at the business model.
Right.
Make those people feel special. Make them feel that they're a part of the company and the actual. We try to do as much fan interaction stuff as we can do. And we try to make everyone feel welcome, because without the fans, and Jimmy Hart says this all the time, without the fans, we are nobody. We are nothing. And we might as well be doing this in an empty room somewhere. So
I can tell you guys, I usually tell you before we go on air, but as I told you before, I'm a foster parent running an emergency shelter, and I run a podcast 5 days a week because it allows me to get into this hour and 15-minute conversation, and I forget about what's really happened over here.
Sure.
So you guys are doing your job. You guys are doing a wonderful job in these shows I go to, man. You forget about real life.
Sure.
And you get involved and you get invested, and and the ones that do it right,
Right. There you go.
we come back.
Sure.
So
Absolutely.
So that leads me to the next thing. How important is brotherhood in the business and paying your dues in the business?
We'll talk about brotherhood. Brotherhood is very important because at any given time with any move, I'm giving you and I'm trusting you with my life with any move. With any move, you're this far away from paralysis. And that's just if you've never examined or thought about that, you are. I'm giving you my body and I'm trusting you. I'm trusting you with it. I'm a father. I have to get back and take care of my family. Now, I've always thought about that in the back of my head. This person I'm working, if I injure them and they're not able to go do their regular 9-to-5 job, am I going to help them pay their bills? There's things that guys want to do all the time. And I'm like, you want to go out there and do a freaking power bomb from the top rope to the outside onto the concrete? Well, I got to get up and go to work Monday. I got a family to take care of. And if you break my neck, are you going to come pay my bills for me? So that's something to keep in the back of your mind.
Absolutely.
It's that level of trust with that brotherhood. And it's just like the Butch thing you went back to. Let's do this time. Let's trust each other. And as the match builds and then it gets to that point, maybe the next time we wrestle, we can do the double flip moonsault from the balcony that you're wanting to do, or whatever the case of it is. As far as paying your dues, I definitely had to. I tell people that come and train with me all the time, I used to get up and drive 4.5 hours on a Saturday morning just so I could go help set up the ring before the show to try to get 20, 30 minutes in there bumping of guys just really beating the far out of you to see if you were tough and if you would come back. And stay, work the show, do security, run music, do whatever you needed to, whatever they needed you to do. Take out the trash, sweep, mop, clean the bathrooms, tear the ring down, load it up, drive straight back, catch a 30-minute nap in my truck before I went to work on the weekend, being a teenager, went to work at Walmart on the weekend and then going to school and then doing it again the next weekend just because I wanted to get my foot in the door. And those people that get hurried through, that don't pay their dues, that don't, little things, helping set up the ring, helping set up the chairs, that appreciation is lost on so many guys of what work actually goes into a show. There's the guys that will always get my respect because I've done it and I've ran it all myself. Like the production stuff, the lights and the music and all of that stuff, man. It's just, it really is a team sport. And those people that don't pay their dues and you can tell that they got hurried up or ran through, promoters are really bad about doing it to, you got some dude that comes in there, he looks like $1 million and he's all jacked up. Promoters are terrible about doing it with females. And I hate that because female wrestling has become such a large part, but a lot of female wrestling on the independents, and I've been to some that they're absolutely horrible. Like, I trained Quinn McKay that was Ring of Honor's, Rookie of the Year. And she took her first bumps with me and she's Kelly Kincaid now with NXT with WWE, but she trained just like the guys. She didn't get a special break because she was a beautiful girl. And like a lot of promoters will be like, come here, let me teach you how to do a headlock. You're on the poster next week. You're in the show. And it's not that I'm being negative towards females. I'm negative at those promoters that are giving those breaks to these people that have never paid their dues. But do you think that they're going to respect this business if they haven't saw the work that goes into this business? No. Even when I was paying my dues, it was like Goldberg was breaking in. And they say that Goldberg was, I've only talked to the guy one time in my life, but this conversation didn't come up. But they say, he went from, just mauling through everybody, of just having this ego and this chip on his shoulder of but he never had to pay his dues. He never had to do those job matches. He never had to do this, that, whatever. He just like, we'll throw him out there and he'll beat everybody up. Well, what are we going to do next week? He's going to beat somebody else up. Yep. Well, they elevated his stock and made everybody else's stock go down. And they made him look like $1 million. What happened when it was contract time? Well, I want X amount of much more money, or I'm going to go to the competition. Right. So I think that's one deal. And I'm not bashing Goldberg. I mean, I would have taken if that was the hand I was dealt, and anybody else that says that they wouldn't, they're lying. But there is a respect that goes with it of paying your dues, knowing your spot on the card, going out there and helping guys get over, because you actually learn to work that way and appreciate where you are. I think when you have an appreciation for something and a respect to it, you start to appreciate everybody on that card and see it as a team sport, as a locker room sport that it needs to be done. If not, you're there for yourself. And if you're there for yourself, in my opinion, you're there for the wrong reasons and you didn't pay your dues.
And I got to agree with you, because the promoter here is Adrian Whisper and John Saxon here in Panama City. And the night before the show, Adrian Whisper is cooking gumbo and jambalaya, and he brings all that food to the concession. So, that dude is very. So I have kids, like I said, and they have questions. It's just a basic shoot, fast answer questions. Favorite food?
Oh man, and you just mentioned gumbo. Man, I love Cajun food. Honestly, some really good brisket, some smoked brisket, some Texas brisket, good stuff. Other than that, big old piece of prime rib and lots of horseradish on that bad boy. I'm a beef boy. All
right. So this question is obviously, I know the answer now. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Yeah, it does. Okay. I enjoy it. I enjoy it. Right. I like
not the answer I thought. Not the answer I thought you'd get.
Pepperoni and pineapple, man. That's the combination. Not the Canadian bacon, but you get the pepperoni, get that salty, that spicy, and that sweet. Boom. Good stuff.
Favorite book?
Oh, I guess you're wrong if you don't say the Holy Bible on this, but man, I wish I was a bigger reader. I have so many books that I need to read. I think the last book I read was the Da Vinci Code. That's how many times but I've got a bookshelf full of books. Oh man, I'll have to pass on the book. I'm going to say the Holy Bible just for being PC on this. Yeah.
Favorite TV show
of all time?
Yeah.
Probably The Office.
Okay.
I know you probably get that a lot, don't you?
No.
Really?
Actually, no, more.
I'll say The Office. Good stuff.
Favorite movie?
Whew. Just talking about this yesterday. Gosh. There's two of them that are like right there and they go back and forth. Mallrats by Kevin Smith. And if you guys haven't saw it, you're missing out. This one's just really crept up there. And every time I watch it, I'm like, man, that's so good. It's Wolf of Wall Street.
Never watched it.
Good movie, man.
Okay.
So good. Leonardo DiCaprio.
Okay.
Good stuff.
Favorite hobby?
I guess pro wrestling, because what starts off as a love becomes a job. And even on your day off, you're thinking about it, you're doing it. I'm going to have to say just wrestling, man. I enjoy it. That's when I promote a show or book a show and I've worked on it months trying to get a crowd there, and you got a sellout crowd and you've got a million things going on. The clearest my head is the entire week is that 15 minutes when I'm in the ring just doing my thing and I can turn everything off for a minute. And that's the most relaxed I am, is in that ring doing what I can do, man. So I'd say just wrestling, buddy.
Favorite sports team?
Kansas City Chiefs. Basketball, have to go with the Celtics. Dude. Not really a baseball fan anymore, but probably the Cardinals. But yeah, Kansas City Chiefs.
We got to end this right now. So now I'm a Detroit Lions fan. So mad respect mad respect for Kansas City Chiefs. They do got a good thing going there. So
Now, who's your team?
Detroit Lions.
What? Barry Sanders was a great player. That's
Yeah.
where the conversation stops.
Come on now, come on.
Hey,
They
man,
were.
I'll tell you what. I actually did watch that. Gosh darn it. I watched it with Jimmy. We watched it at the hotel restaurant, and then we watched it. It was the Sunday night game that put him in the playoffs. Dadgummit.
Not that Dallas Cowboys game.
Was that the one that was what was the upset one that they gosh darn it.
Yeah, I don't know.
It was the one that before KC knocked him out. I believe it was really good. It was Sunday. It was the Sunday night game.
Okay.
But like we started on, we had just Detroit is just kicking tail.
Well, they had a great game against the 49ers, and they blew it.
And they blew it. But no, man, I really did think they had a shot this year. They had momentum, and that's hard to stop.
Absolutely. Mount Rushmore of wrestlers.
I get asked this a lot, and they kind of rotates. Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, Dusty Rhodes, and that fourth one can rotate. You know, because there's a lot of different variances. Are you looking at money? Are you looking at this? Are you looking at that? And I guess it all comes down to money. Dadgum, man. There's guys I like, and then I love Bret Hart. I think Bret Hart is like, whether you listen to Bret now or whatever the case of it is, you go back, there's so many things that Bret Hart can do and make it look so clean, so crisp, that I will have my students watch Bret Hart matches because they were just his ring awareness, the way he moves, his punches are money. I put Bret Hart on it, but if you ask me tomorrow, that may change. The order may change too. So You got to have Flair on there. Dusty Rhodes, in my opinion, just because I was a huge Dusty fan, and he helped create, with his booking in his 80s. He really drove that. And Hogan, of course, as far as money. And I like Stone Cold, don't get me wrong, but as far as, the dude did make money, man. So you can't argue with that. So
Absolutely. So
I know it's back and forth, and I'd never give like a solid answer on that. And what you asked me today may change tomorrow and next week, and just I go through my phases. And we all have our one that could rotate or drop in and off on that at any time.
So Steven Espinoza says Jason Jones is one half of the KC Luchadors.
Yeah, I am.
So this man, Mr. Espinoza, he was a guest on the show, and of course I gave him shit because Attila and his group of homeboys or whatever lost a match at SICW a couple months ago, but it is what it is. So let's talk about Mr. Steven Espinoza. I have a question so first of all, I got a question from a guest. Dave Hutton says, what is it going to take to get mid-states to come to Nixa?
For Nixa, let's see, I guess a check.
And he really likes the thing that you did with Jimmy Hart when, Christmas time, they had a night out with Jimmy Hart and Space Cowboy.
Oh, yeah, man. We had a great time with that. That was so much fun. We had this was the Christmas before last. Jimmy Hart and I do a Christmas tour every year. Have for 3 years, and it's usually the weekend before Christmas, and we'll go and we just pile up a bunch of things. We'll do a couple shows in there. This last year, we did a triple shot. We did a show in Arkansas. In Siloam Springs, which is right on the Arkansas-Oklahoma line. We did a show in Springfield, Missouri. Then Sunday, we did a shot in St. Joe, Missouri. But before that, we had filmed an episode of our TV show. We had done, so much stuff. And the year before, the venue that we normally run in Springfield, Missouri, the guy that ran it that is there now, he left periodically, and they had a temporary lady that filled in, and she put our date down wrong, and she put us down for the Sunday. And we had already had this date booked out 6 months in advance. So what we did to get that taken care of is Jimmy and I went and filmed a commercial on Thursday. Friday, we went and did the news, did promotion, and we did an autograph signing. Saturday was supposed to have been the show in Springfield. What we did was we went ahead and moved the show to Sunday because they messed up on the calendar. Saturday night, though, however, one of our buddies, the guy that wrestles for me, owned a coffee shop in Springfield, Jimmy Fiasco. So we did an evening with Jimmy Hart. And the cool thing that a lot of people don't understand about Jimmy Hart is he wrote almost all of that old theme music, from all the stuff in WCW to all that stuff in WWF. Sexy Boy, Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart's music. He wrote the Wolfpack song. He did all that stuff. And he was the singer in a band called the Gentrys that did the song Keep On Dancing. So he has a big musical background. He did Dusty Rhodes' Common Man, and he has some really good stories about just being around. And so we're like, let's put together an evening with Jimmy Hart where he can still make a little bit of money on his deal. And we charged, I forget what it was, and we gave the coffee shop some to host it there. And Jimmy just basically, it was only going to be open to like 20, 25 people, something like that. But basically, he stood there and we sat down and told these stories. And they could have, it was a Q&A, and we had, there was food and drink. And we just had an evening with Jimmy Hart. And he would tell the stories of, Dusty Rhodes came to me and he said, I want a cowbell in the song. And then I want a choir and I want this. And he's like, damn, Dusty, why don't you just do the song? It just little things like that. And he would tell these stories. And then we opened it up to Q&A. But it was fun because it was really intimate. Jimmy's a very personable guy. And if we bring him into an event, he'll take that 3 or 4 minutes and talk to you. But sometimes if there's a line of 100 people waiting to get his autograph, you don't have a time to actually talk to that dude. So it was a chance where you could get a few photos and he'd take a picture with you, and we included, you could bring a personal item and he would sign the item, and then you got an autographed 8x10 too. And it was all included in the price of a ticket. But it was so cool because it was only open to I think it was open to 25 people. And it was so intimate and it was fun. I had questions myself that I asked, and it was just really cool. And it was a really cool time, Dave. I enjoyed that.
Nice. And he says, is there going to ever be a Space Cowboy and Stephen E. Type of thing?
A rematch?
No, I don't. He was talking about a Q&A, one of those nights.
Oh, yeah. That would be fun because Stephen and I have been, we've been friends, enemies, and we're better enemies than friends, I think, with that feud going back 20-something years. And I helped break Stephen E. into the business, and I may have created a monster. So I want to apologize to SICW and everywhere else that he wreaks terror on. So I may have been the evil that broke him into the business. But Steven's got a great head for wrestling. He's got a great head for business. I can't argue with that. Sometimes it's tactics I'm not a big fan of. So we'll leave it at that.
So let's talk about the tactics. Let's get back. Let's get into mid-states wrestling.
Yeah.
You as a wrestler in the ring with Stephen E., his boy Attila Khan, all that jazz. Have you ever received the fireball?
I have.
Anything to say about that?
I was lucky enough that when he did throw the fireball at me, I moved. It got the back part of my neck, but when I moved, it got the referee as well. So I got grazed. It was not anything that was sorry, I got a squeaky chair. I got grazed. It's not anything I want to do again anytime soon.
Right.
I had one of the best matches ever because it was just every hit was so satisfying. I think it was November of 2022. Stephen E. and I had a Springfield street fight. And it was one of those culminations of we tricked him into signing the contract. Of course, I'm a babyface. He's a heel up there. And we had, I'd say, a banger of a match. But, man, it was just me just beating the living piss out of this guy for 25 minutes, man, of just laying it to him. And I just had such a good time in that match because I could have ended the match 4 or 5 times, but it was like, oh, no. oh no, let's see what else I can hit him over the top of the head with.
So along with Stephen E., there comes Attila Khan.
Yeah. You know, I've wrestled Attila like 6 times, and I still have not pulled a win off of Attila yet.
Well, he has a question for you.
Attila has a question for me?
Yes, he does.
Oh, my gosh.
Can you talk about the time when Attila Khan knocked your tooth out?
I can. I was having a match with Attila was having a match with Alan Jefferson, and I can't remember how it ended up going, but we ended up. And the thing with Attila, man, he'll club you with those big. He's got some big hands, and we're just trading punches, and he pops me right in the mouth, and it was a what do you call it? A tooth. It had a crown on it. I just see that thing through the air. You just see it going up, and you hit the lights, and I'm like, he's knocked my tooth out. Hit me right in the mouth. Just got it with a knuckle, just perfect. And of course, here I am, my mouth's bleeding and everything else, and we don't stop. We're just beating the far out of each other. Finally, locker room empties, split us up. The referees are coming down there. I'm supposed to do a ringside interview, and I'm like, where's my tooth? And I'm like, there's blood coming out of my mouth. And I'm like, somebody find my damn tooth. And they're looking around, and sure enough, the referee comes up with it. It was right by the ring skirt. I guess it had got kicked or whatever the case of it was. And everybody right after it happened, it was intermission. Everybody's wanting to see my mouth. And of course it's bleeding. I put the tooth in the baggie, and I'm like, you knocked the tooth out of my mouth. But still to this day, that's one of the hardest I've ever been hit. But Attila and I, we just club the far out of each other. But to fix that tooth, with pro wrestling, being a pro wrestler, you don't get good insurance. If you do, I say go see my friends at KC Insurance. They can take care of you on anything. But because I had already had a crown on that tooth, I went back to get it fixed, and they were like, hey, we can't do anything for it because the post is too small now. We can try to temporarily fix it. They tried to temp fix it. It lasted about a day. So the thing of it is, they were like, you're going to have oral surgery. So I had to set up an appointment to go see a specialist. I had to go see a dentist to get a referral to go see a specialist. So that's like $600 out of pocket. Then the specialist tells me, he's like, the only thing we can do to that is insert. I guess they do something where they make it like a screw and they screw it in.
Yep.
It's like $7,300, not counting the x-rays, not counting all that stuff. Had to be paid in full up front. And he was like, I can't get to you for 6 to 7 months. Luckily enough, my stepdad, his brother owns a dental lab, and they weren't able to do anything. But every now and then you'll see the Space Cowboy pop that prosthesis out, and there you have the tooth.
Nice.
So until it gets permanently fixed with that surgery and $8,000 out, thanks for knocking my tooth out, Attila. So I have that to deal with every day.
So Mid-States Wrestling. Stephen E., I stir the pot a little bit. I'm going to stir the pot right here. Space Cowboy deserved getting his tooth knocked out.
Did he?
That's what he said. So I think what I hear him say is Stephen E. wants another match with the Space Cowboy here shortly.
Yeah.
And we need to keep Attila Khan out of the picture.
That's a good point.
If he joins the picture, something has to happen with that team. I'm just saying. I'm not a writer, so
we'll do false tooth on a pole match.
Yeah, there you go, false.
I think it needs to be like an $8,000 bounty match, and I'll put up my career against Stephen E's $8,000, and if I win, I'll get it and I'll take it and I'll get the tooth replaced that Attila knocked out.
There you go.
Make it happen, baby.
Make it happen. You're the promoter. Make it happen. So I got to ask this before we go further into the questions about Mid-States. Slap Fight Championship.
Yeah, man.
You've talked about getting your tooth knocked out by Attila Khan. Have you ever been in one of those slap fights?
No, man. Here's the thing. I'm luckily enough where I just get to host the thing, and they pay me to talk. So I'm fine with that.
You're a
But
smart man.
being that close to some of those, especially during COVID, when we were doing those closed studio tapings, I'm right there, man. And it just makes my face hurt being that close to the action. You
I
know,
watched
putting your hands behind your back and giving your opponent your face and them telling, I need you to pull it down, where they just wind up and smack the far out of you. I'm out. I've had a lot of concussions in my day, but that's not one I'm going to stand there and just let somebody slap me in the face.
I can't say I would not do that myself. I see it on ESPN and I'm like, nope.
Yeah, it's it's a unique sport. It's not for me. Like, not for me to compete in. Like, I enjoy getting to host it, doing interviews with the guys. I enjoy watching it. However, competing, I'm out.
Yep.
You know, wow, no, can't do it. I've seen some guys that would be in my weight class, and I'm out.
Yep. Stephen E is walking on thin, dangerous line. I think you are, Stephen E. Keep your mouth going. You're going to find yourself in trouble.
Stephen, let me tell you something. If you want a match, guess what, brother? You're out of time. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to make it happen, baby.
I got just a curious question. I had the opportunity to have Barbara Goodish on my show about a month ago. I just got her book. She sent me a book that she wrote about Bruiser Brody.
Great.
So do you have any Bruiser Brody stories a story you could share about with your interaction with Bruiser Brody?
I never had an interaction with Bruiser Brody. Fortunately, he passed away, and I was still a young kid. I just got a chance to see him one time live when I was a kid, but being able to compete in the Bruiser Brody Memorial Battle Royal, Barbara is a tremendous lady. I've known her for a few years. She's at Cauliflower Alley almost every year, and she's so sweet and she's so lovable. She's just a great, great person. I love her a lot. I was a fan of Bruiser Brody. I bought a tape, like a bootleg tape, probably in like the year 2000 on eBay, and it was like Best of Bruiser Brody in Puerto Rico and Best of Bruiser Brody in Japan. And I watched a lot of those matches, and he was very intense worker. But seeing those people in Japan like scatter when he would come to the ring, they scared him, man. And that's what's missing a lot of times in professional wrestling is some of the realism. Like, that dude's lost it. Like, that match before might have been a little bit put on, but that dude can beat me up, you know? And I know there's a lot of people that feel the same way as far as Bruiser Brody. It was such a great loss in our business, and there's not a doubt in my mind if he was still around today, he would be one of the top draws to have, even just to show up and take photos with and things like that. But he's missed by a lot of people, and just the time that he was around, that shows you what an impact that he made on the business. People still wearing Bruiser Brody shirts. People, you know, still watching his matches from the 80s with Abdullah and stuff like that. So that should show you what an impact he had on this pro wrestling during the short time that he was around.
Right. And I had a chance to talk to Julio Rivera, Alpha's son-in-law, and he said the same thing you just said. He's scary looking. He's intense.
Right.
And that's, it's just, he's an intense looking dude. I don't know if I'd want to mess with him off a wrestling show. No, there's no way. So, man, let's talk about mid-states wrestling. You've had 17 consecutive sellouts in Springfield, Missouri.
Yes, sir.
That is impressive. Can you tell us all that goes into that and what that means to you as the promoter?
That's a win on the promoting side. And that's not, it's just Springfielder wrestling fans. No, that's, because other companies have tried and other companies have drawn a portion of what we draw. It's bringing the top talent there, but it's also the product that you're putting on. You can take the same wrestlers and give it to another company to try in the same place, And if they don't have that formula of what works with the combination of the production of the product, the booking that's going into it, you'd have two different turnouts. It's like giving two different people the same ingredients of a cake mix and say, bake this cake. Odds are that cake's going to turn out a little bit different one way or another, right?
Yep, absolutely.
And we've got the right formula, and I think that goes back to the interactions and the relationships we built with those fans and what they want to see. And there's a little bit of something for everybody. It's like the buffet. You got to have a little something for everybody. You got to have some brisket on there for me, some pineapple pizza for you. You got to have some mini corn dogs for the kids, but you got to have a little bit of something for everybody. 31 flavors is an example. Chocolate and vanilla are always going to be your top selling two flavors. It's a standard, but every now and then you might want some mint chocolate chip. You might want this. So we try to have a little something on those cards for everybody. You got a high flying match. You got the two big dudes going at it. You got a little bit of tag team wrestling. You got this. You got Stephen E. and his shenanigans with Attila. You got this going on. So it's a perfect mixture of what we think our crowd wants and the right place, the right time, but it's also a lot of hard work. And that's where, that nickname that I have, the hardest working man in pro wrestling. If you know me, I'm always moving, and it's always, if I've got a show in June, you can guarantee by April, I'm out hanging up posters. I'm doing this I'm setting up radio interviews. I'm setting up TV interviews. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. Not just hanging up posters, but I'm there trying to forge relationships in the community and do fundraisers like Harrison, Arkansas, that we've ran since the beginning of Mid-States and pretty much been our home. We do multiple fundraisers here every year because we want to give back to this community. We're not just there to make a quick buck and run away. We're there to make relationships and found it just like a campsite. You want to find it better than you found it. That's the rule that you're supposed to have. And that's what we try to do. We give back to those communities that were there, and you just kind of nature, that relationship. You nurture it. As far as the fans and having interactions with them and the same diehard fans that have been there since before COVID and that are still coming, and you being a promoter, you see people come and go because it is very secular, especially kids. Kids, when they become a teenager, they have other stuff going on. But then I've had kids grow up coming to our events with their parents, and then you see them when they hit about 15, 16 years old, they disappear. And then the next time you see them, they're 24 years old and they got a family of theirs and they're bringing their kids back to wrestling, So it's pretty cool. I've seen that happen a lot. And I think it's there's a lot of hard work that goes into selling it out. Yeah. And it's not just a matter of, I'm going to book this person, I'm going to throw them on a poster, this and that, or I'm going to buy some Facebook ads. No, there's a lot that goes into that as far as promotion. And we've been able to have a revolving door of talent to give everybody a little something where it's not just, it was built on the backs of these four people. No, it's not the case. It's a matter of giving the crowd a little bit of something that they want every time, and getting a chance to tell stories and actually have professional wrestling and not just a match with a bunch of flips in it that don't make any sense. We want a family-friendly show that can still have a little bit of an edge to it, but something that you can bring grandma out to, but you can also bring your 6-year-old to and not have to worry about language or nudity or vulgarity, anything like that. So I think it's the right formula.
Absolutely. And what I do like about Mid-States and SICW is it's old school feel.
Yes, sir.
That makes sense. And what I love the most is because when I was growing up as a kid, I remember Gorilla Monsoon, Jesse Ventura, even Vince McMahon ringside with that long stick microphone.
Yeah.
Doing those ringside interviews.
Yes, sir.
Instead of this backstage crap that they, whatever. Anyways, You guys knock it out of the park for us old school wrestling fans.
Thank you.
To want to watch your stuff. I mean, I'd watch that stuff any day because it's old school feel.
Right. Thank you so much for the compliment. That's
No
one
problem.
thing that I've always drilled in our head is like at the end of the day, it's still professional wrestling.
Mhm.
And old school's been a term that I've loved to champion. I've got old school in my gear and a lot of my shirts, old school.
Cool.
Because you're taking that the way it should be. So it's old school, and you're taking that formula that's tested, tried, and true in the 70s and 80s and even early 90s, and you're exposing a crowd to it. This is the way it should be done. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. It's a formula that has worked for many years. And if you
100%.
stick to that formula, there's going to be lean times. But if you will stick to that formula, if you still want to be a professional wrestler or run a professional wrestling company, stick to that formula, and you'll be surprised what you can pull off.
I have a really good source that tells me that Mid-States Wrestling has the best ran concession stand anywhere else, and it's ran by your mom and dad.
Yeah, my mom, my aunt, my stepdad, they're always there. But for years, we've always had pulled pork nachos. And Tim Rockwell and I fight with WFC all the time. Like, where did it come from first, or who did it better? And we're always man, our pulled pork nachos are the best. His pulled pork nachos are the best. We have some of the best barbecue that you've ever had. And it's a shame that you just can't get it anytime. You got to come to wrestling to get that. It's like Tim has a shirt that I absolutely love, and it says, come for the pulled pork nachos, stay for the wrestling. But we do have a really good old school concession stand, pulled pork nachos, and good old salty, buttery popcorn, ice cold soda pop. Nothing beats coming to a match. Danny Hodge told me a story that Leroy McGurk, Danny Hodge loved Dr. Pepper. And every time he would come down and do an appearance, come down and sign autographs for me. Years ago, I used to work for Pepsi-Cola, and I would send him home with like a couple of the 24-pack 20-ounce Dr. Peppers.
Okay.
And I would send him home with a couple of those because we got a discount on them. And he was telling me a story about Dr. Pepper. And Leroy McGurk came in one time to the building, and Leroy was back there, and he was popping popcorn at this concession stand wherever they were at in Oklahoma or whatever. And he had this big feed sack that had just like salt in it. And he had just a styrofoam cup, and he was throwing the salt on that popcorn. He said, "Danny, you want a bag of popcorn?" And Danny goes, "Yeah, sure." And he takes a bag of popcorn. And he said he made this face immediately because it was so salty.
Wow.
And he goes, "Oh, you want me to get you Dr. Pepper?" He's like, "Oh, please." And he's like, "That'll be 25 cents. So you salt that popcorn, give him a nickel bag. And Sonny Myers used to say, and Niles Plonk will back me up on this, Gus Karras used to sell popcorn, a nickel a bag every night. Made $500 a night. Later on that night, you'd hear Sonny, and he'd say, Gus Karras used to sell popcorn, nickel a bag, make $5,000 a night. The money just kept going up. And like, Sonny, that building only seated 2,000 people. There's no way that he sold at a nickel a bag. He didn't sell 20,000 bags of popcorn that night. But yeah, it's So thank you for the compliment, whoever on the concession.
Herb Simmons.
Herb Simmons, yeah. But yeah, he's got to go back and say hi to everybody when he gets there, and they love having Herb around. And I tell him, I'm like, whatever that guy wants, you take care of him. I'm not gonna do it. It's Herb like, I'm gonna pay for it. I'm like, no, don't pay for it. But yeah, he's a good dude. Good dude.
So man, I hope. Are you going to Cauliflower Alley Club this year?
Yes, sir. I've been the first year I went. I want to say I went in 01, 02 when it was back at the Riviera. I didn't go back again until they came to the Gold Coast, and I went a couple years there in a row. And then I've been, when they moved it downtown to the Plaza now, I've been the last, I guess, 3 years. But have a good time. Jimmy Hart's been out there the last couple of years, and he's been, signing autographs. So 2 years before that, me, Jerry Lawler, and Jimmy Hart, and somebody else be named anonymously, we got a chance to get a private tour of Elvis's suite at the old Hilton. And it's the Barry Manilow suite now, but we got a chance to take off and go see that. And we got tour backstage of the famous, like the same, stage that he did all of his appearances on there in Vegas. So it was really, really cool. And to see Jimmy Hart and Jerry Lawler pulling their phones out to mark out over something.
Yeah.
It was fun. And we had such a good time just because you don't get a chance. We're usually, like I said, with CAC, it's such a great thing. And I would encourage anybody that is in this business or, support CAC, man, because they really do help a lot of people. And it really is a really cool thing to be a part of. It's showing that you respect the business. I would, if you can't afford, what is it? Jim Ross gave the speech, and it's, lifetime dues, I think, are $300. But I mean, I've went year to year for 15 years, and I finally became a lifetime member. But we're talking like $25 a year, man. As Jim Ross said as he got off stage, he's like, we got to get these memberships up. He was like, and if you can't afford $25 a year, you need to find a new business to be in. Literally talking about $2 a month. You get a newsletter with that, plus it helps out everybody else in need. When I first started going, I remember they were having an issue. I think Johnny Valentine's widow was having an issue, and they were able to get a bereavement fund to her to help pay for the funeral or something along that lines. And I was like, what a cool thing to be able to do. I never had the privilege of meeting Johnny Valentine, but to be a part of an organization that helped out somebody that meant so much to this business, it's great. And so I encourage all you people listening to, if you're in this business, join Cauliflower Alley Club. And I'm just speaking as a member. I've built friendships there it's good networking possibilities, but two, it's a chance to sit down and get to visit and bond with some of these guys that you're on these shows that it's like, King and Jimmy, we're always working if we're doing something, but to get to take off and to get to see them and us take another Uber 10 miles out of the way because, Jerry wanted to go get a Wahlburger and a chocolate shake. But to get a chance to do that kind of stuff and just hang out with guys that you're in the business with, it's so cool, man. And they're going to be memories that you're going to enjoy. And there's times where you're just going to walk, you're going to go outside and you're going to walk downtown by the plaza and you're going to, you're going to see guys having a beer and just go over and have a beer and hang out a little bit. Good times had by all.
Awesome, man. I am excited. I think that's on our bucket list of things to do, possibly in 2024 for sure. But I do agree with that. If you don't go to the Cauliflower Alley Club event, just be a member.
Yeah, be a member.
I mean, I have these guys on. I've been blessed. I'll be honest. I've been really blessed to have guys on my show that I would never thought I could have. And all the guys from SICW that I'm like, I would never have Glenn Williams.
Right.
I would never Stephen E. Attila Khan. I would never have guessed I would have been able to do this. Bruiser Brody's wife sitting here talking to her.
Yeah.
Your Space Cowboy Jason Jones sitting here talking to you about mid-states wrestling. I almost did it. Sorry. And the opportunities I'm going to have, why would I not pay that $25 a year to give back? That's my way of saying, hey, I'm going to give back because you guys, I don't care about followers, whoever, subscribers, whatever. I do, but just to get away for an hour and a half talking to people like you
right.
Why would I not give back? That's crazy for me.
There's many times we'll be down in the lobby just sitting in, like, the old location used to have a TGI Fridays in, like, the lobby. And there's times just like come in, like Herb and his wife are sitting there. So let's go over to the table and BS with Herb for a little bit. Oh, what are you guys going to do tonight? Oh, we're going to go here. We're going to go eat dinner. We're going to go this. We're going to go do that. It's a good time. And like I said, even if you don't go to the banquet, $25 a year or whatever it is, I think it's 25. It might be 30 now. Who knows? But you might be the person needing help one day. You might need to be, it's a good thing. But even the newsletters alone are cool to get because they tell you a little bit of what's going on here and there to read up on who all's receiving those awards and to get a chance to go to the banquets when you get a chance. It's awesome. It's not an expensive trip. You can get flights into Vegas, usually pretty cheap because they're trying to get people out there. Your discount with the CAC room, I mean, you can't get a hotel anywhere else as cheap as you can for that. To go out there and have a couple good meals provided to you and sit around and listen to these induction speeches and hang out with some people, it's a good time. And I make sure I don't have any bookings on those that weekend. I made the mistake of taking a booking on a Saturday, and my flight got back in on Friday night, and my flight was delayed coming back to Springfield, Missouri. And by the time I got home, it was like 1 a.m. in the morning, and realized that I was booked for Jerry Bostic, and we were in Oklahoma, and I just thought it was a regular show. So I was like, I'll get a chance to get in, get a shower, get a little bit of sleep, hit the road. It was like a 5.5-hour drive, but it was I call them corn dog fairs, one of those like festivals, and the show was going to start at like noon. So it's like I got home, literally threw my bag down, threw everything in the washing machine, grabbed my gear, took a shower, and started driving. So I make it a point never to do that again anymore. I never want to turn it and burn it in case my flight is delayed or anything like that. But yeah, I try to mark it on the calendar every year, man.
Awesome, man. Hopefully, maybe I get a chance to meet you.
Absolutely. We'll have a good time.
It is coming up on the closing of the show. This is where I give the guest an opportunity to say what he needs to say. I mean, you got some things coming up. You got the Battle Royal you're going to be in.
Yes, sir.
You got an issue that Stephen E. that keeps on running his mouth.
Right.
That'll
never stop, though.
Right, that's probably right. Why don't you close the show? Tell everybody where they can find you. Tell your competitors in this Battle Royal what they should expect. And then I'm going to play some music. And please don't go nowhere. I want to talk to you for a few seconds waiting in the ring room, okay? There you go.
Sure, man. Thank you, first of all, Scott, for having me on, representing Mid-States Wrestling. I want to tell you about our TV show, Mid-States Wrestling. Our Season 2 drops this week, and we have a very good TV show. It is a very old-school product. It's I think you would like it. Give it a chance. Just check it out. It's on our YouTube channel. It's at Mid-States Wrestling. If you could, and not just watch an episode, but if you like it, go ahead and do that subscribe thing, and you'll get a notification. You'll get a chance to see those episodes as soon as they come out. But our Season 2 drops this week, I believe on Friday. But go check out Season 1. There's some great matches, man. Some of the better matches we put together. Check that out for us. Our social media, Facebook at Mid-States Wrestling, Instagram at Mid-States Wrestling. Our next event is Saturday, April 13th, Harrison, Arkansas. Next Springfield event, we talked about Springfield, Missouri earlier, is Saturday, June 22nd. Now you can get tickets and event info on that. It's mswtickets.com. And there's links on that website to our YouTube channel, to our Instagram, to our Facebook, mswtickets.com. I'll try to put a comment on here that'll have that link. But if you guys could do me a favor tonight, we're just right there at 1,000 true subscribers and not a bunch of paid generated ones from overseas or anything like that. These are genuine wrestling fans that share in the liking our channel. If you could go to YouTube at Mid-States Wrestling, give us a subscribe, give us a follow on that, and you'll get the update of when that episode will drop. And sometimes it'll even be a little bit early, so you get a chance to watch it before everybody else. Do that. We're almost there, right at 1,000. That would help us go ahead and push that over 1,000 right now. And it's got we've got some great sponsors on there. It's a great product. Give it a chance. I know Herb's doing commentary on some of those episodes. Stephen E., you're going to see him in there. You're going to see Attilicon. You're going to see myself, Luke Langley, Gary Roosevelt Graham, the Johnnies. A lot of great competitors. You're going to see Jimmy Hart on an episode or two. Really good old school wrestling. Give it a shot. We try to run a 30-minute program. Most of the episodes are going to come in about 24 to 25 minutes long, but they're perfect to watch on a break at work or when you're just at home and you want to unwind and zone out on your phone for 25 minutes. Mid-States Wrestling, at Mid-States Wrestling on YouTube. So if you guys would do that, I really appreciate it. I really am excited to be a part of the Fan Fest by SICW and Herb Simmons. I've been lucky enough to be chosen again for that Bruiser Brody Battle Royal. Last time there was a lot of people in that, and I did get blindsided by Superstar Steve. And this year I'm going to do my best to win the whole dadgum thing, man. That's what you got to do. And I've been around Battle Royals a long time, being in this business 27 years, but there's nothing more prestigious I would love to have is that Bruiser Brody Memorial Cup, like the next time I talk to you, just sitting right. And that happens in May. So I'm excited to be a part of that Fan Fest. And Mid-States Wrestling, we have a booth there as well. Jimmy Hart's going to be there, and Herb has got that thing loaded up. So you guys don't miss that. It's going to be a big thing.
Awesome, man. So we have Space Cowboy Jason Jones of Mid-State Wrestling. Check him out on his YouTube channel, that at Mid-States Wrestling. Hit the subscribe button. Follow those guys so you get the great information. Follow Huge Pop Wrestling at Huge Pop Wrestling at Huge Pop Wrestling on YouTube. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Space Cowboy Jason Jones. Thank you, Mid-States. Thanks for Mid-States Wrestling. Catch us on the outside. We're gonna have more content. Keep on going, and it's been a great day and great night. And I appreciate you, Space Cowboy Jason Jones. Don't go nowhere.
All my dogs, make some noise up in this house.
Who is in the house? Who is in the house? It's the gangster of destruction, so you know what's going down. And when the drive-by's coming, then you better hit the grind. Cause when your body hits the canvas, then your head is knocked out. Who is in the house? Who is in the house? It's the gangster of destruction, so you know what's going down. And when the drive-by's coming, then you better hit the grind. Cause when your body hits the canvas, then your head is knocked out. Fight with Adrian Whisper is like a fight with the devil, because when he's dealing with you, you cannot get on this level. Fight with Adrian Whisper is like a fight with a king. It's like a fight with an army. They got the tanks and everything. He's leaving bruises and stitches, possibly leaving you crippled. Cause when he sets up the table and sends you straight through the middle. Take sadistic free, beat that ass with a light bulb. Leave a piece of glass embedded in the back of your skull. Who is in the house? Who is in the house? It's the gangster of destruction, so you know what's going down. And when the drive-by's coming, then you better hit the ground. Cause when your body hits the canvas, then your ass is knocked out. Who is in the house? Who is in the house? It's the gangster of destruction, so you know what's going down. And when the drive-by's coming, then you better hit the ground. Cause when your body hits the canvas, then your ass is knocked out.